call to the meeting to order, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh boy. Okay. Well. Okay. That's exciting. I was like, well, pause. Who's your last? Very happy to see you here. Sorry. We just all realized that there was that empty chair, and I was like, oh my gosh.
I'm so sorry.
Nope, no worries, no worries. We just started and we did the Pledge of Allegiance, so.
Okay, great.
Take a breath. We'll start with something easy that you won't really have to take notes on. Make a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting, October 6th. I have made a motion. Second. Any discussion about the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor? Okay, moving on next, we are up to already the financial report.
We're running higher than past years due to some health placements and what have you. And if you determine that by looking at the percentage of the first line, percentage we're 16%. If you add that to the 79%, that means we're encumbered and spent already 95% of the budget. In past years, if you do the same addition, you can see it's elevated from last year. That last year was 88% BD. So you can see that there's some elevated prices going on, costs going on here. That's just to, we'll get through this year just fine according to business manager and Superintendent Boyd, but we should know, or you should be aware that moving forward, FY24 looks like prices are going to be through the roof, whether it be for energy or outplacements or just natural costs.
And Deb, just as a precautionary measure, which we've done in the past, will you know, she has reached out to FinCom and the town administrator to discuss if we were to get into the budget for this year, but also more preparation for next year.
But she said we're within limits for this year. There is a meeting with those two departments, not only to make sure we're good for this year, but to prepare for next year.
And for a warm winter and.
Right, and we're starting off with a nice fall so far. So we do need a vote for the transfers as presented to clean up the negative balances. The biggest negative balances from negotiations last year would be educational assistants salaries. So, but just as they're presented on your new cover sheet, we're looking for a vote for that.
Judy, could you explain those a little bit more?
I can try from our notes. So, if we look at which particular line? So so particularly for teacher salaries, the reason it's not teacher salaries.
I can take it.
Educational assistance. That
So
was
you'll
for negotiations last year. I can say that. The educational assistance, that
Yeah.
14,000 is from the negotiations from last year.
Same thing with the admin assistant.
And the same thing with the admin assistant. So the reason the special ed integrations, we're pulling from that to pay, I can't answer that. Or the nurse aide salary,
215-ish, right?
I can't answer that. But there's an overage there, probably because of a new hire or something. Yes, a new hire. That's exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. They hire at a lower pay scale, so you can take that money and move it to the other lines. So if that answers your question, Lisa.
Thank you very much, yes.
Okay, so the ones under the 250 and 370 are
removals.
Right, taking them
Yeah.
out of the budget and helping to offset
Moving
the
them, yes.
additional that are on the budget.
Yep.
Okay. I'll first make the motion to accept the budget transfers as outlined. The number is $24,325.47 on the updated cover sheet that we received tonight. Is there a second? Okay. Is there any other discussion or questions about the budget transfer specifically? Good? Okay, all in favor? Thank you. Did anyone, we didn't have any other discussion about the budget, but did anyone have any other questions or things that they wanted to ask about? Granted, Mr. Nemberko's not here, but Ms. Rose, I can answer your questions.
Yeah, I have a question. Just, and there's, it seems like there's other things that are trending quite a bit higher as well. Gasoline being one that stood out to me, as well as the special ed tuition. So I know that overall we're still falling under budget, but are there concerns that we're not going to remain under budget?
Possibly with energy, but I don't know if this, maybe Kathy would know too, if they signed a contract to have the stable fuel prices for this year, other districts have, I'm not sure.
I think that we do.
So because of that, that'll save us this year, but it's not gonna help us FY '24 budget. So what will cost, have we stabilized the cost for this year, is it contracted?
Yes.
Yes, so it's moving forward is our issue more than this year.
Okay.
There's also concerns that those bids may be overridden by the state, as you've seen, like with other utilities like National Grid recently. There may be something may happen. Based on cost.
Do you know, did we lock in those prices after the budget was
Yeah.
done? Is that why we're
Yes.
a little bit over budget there?
Yeah.
Okay. And then, you know, the special ed tuition we've discussed in the past, but that's quite projected to be quite a bit over, so.
Oh, I need to look at, yeah, check.
I am looking at page 3,
Looking at 555, 556, 555, 9555. Yeah, that's the private tuition.
Right.
And Jody's gonna talk about something
Children.
about that. Well, no, that's just, that's why we're anticipating budgetary concerns for next year.
Okay, so we
Just-
still think even with that overage that we will be able to cover it for this year?
We're hopeful.
Yeah.
We are, that we're hopeful.
Yeah, the comment was we're within limits
Mhm.
currently, so,
You know.
but
And
FY
it is-
'24 does look much different.
And we actually, Jody has a
Yeah.
communication in regard to, state approving a 14% increase for next year for private special.
Private special ed program
programs.
tuitions.
So we have to anticipate that that number is going to be up automatically. I always like to remind you that those tuitions include children from the age of 3 through the age of 22 years old.
How many do we currently have?
Roughly.
Burgess kids that would be eligible to be
private.
educated here, just Burgess kids, I think we're 4.
And it's close to aging out.
Well, I'm just talking about the ones, I can only give you the number for
Okay.
here. I don't have that budget, but I think
We can ask those.
we have them, I have them written down for the next, for the budget.
Any other questions on all the good news of the budget?
Yes,
It's not, it's
Everywhere.
everywhere.
It's
Trust
everywhere.
me, it's everywhere. Okay, thank you for that. Next up, I guess we just talked about this, but let's dig in a little more about the communications that we have about the special education increase.
So I guess typically in past years, it always ranged from 5% to 8%, and now they're elevating the price of 14% for special ed education program tuitions. That's all students who are outside of our jurisdiction. Yeah. So they just sent this October 25th, and they gave if you look on page 2 and 3, they actually give what took place over the years, the historical, and then you see the biggest jump from FY '23 to '24. So,
I think it only applies to private, so I don't
Private.
think it impacts the collaborative, but I'm not certain of
Right.
that.
So what that means for us is that everyone that is currently enrolled in a private school that we're paying for, we will inflate what we're gonna have to pay out by 14% to project what our budget needs to be for next year.
yeah. 12% higher than what we're currently paying.
And that is what our
Right.
projection, we've done a preliminary budget, and that's what our projection showed.
Yeah, okay. And then, I'm sorry, I gotta read through all this, but I know the circuit breaker funds are something that we leverage for this. Are we getting more money to help, or
Well, we
no?
will get more money
Yeah.
because as those numbers increase, we will get more, but if you remember, we prepaid, we
Yeah.
are going to approve the prepayment to try to offset some of what we've received here.
Last year, we prepaid for this year, but we don't have those same funds to prepay for next year.
But circuit breaker
Should replenish itself.
go up, actually, what our percentages we have.
So Jody, if we use like the program of India, that's not private.
Correct.
Correct.
And Project Blue, is that private?
That's the next, that's collaborative, so
Right.
it's mass
Okay.
schools.
Thank you.
And is there any chance that this gets reduced, or this is what it is?
As in the percentage increase, it is what it is.
You know, what we do, and what we can't continue to do is we developed programs within
District.
Lisa and Christina, we've increased our program, and we did actually, add a little bit more programming this year as well, in order to keep kids here at Burgess, as well as keeping children from other system schools in the district.
Any other questions about communication? Okay, let's move on to the principal's report.
I'll just try not to do the best I can, sorry, Steve.
Do you want us to read it for you?
No, I'm just gonna thank,
Thank-
go ahead, you do it, because if I have to talk for a long time.
So recognitions, Mrs. Kelly would like to thank Mrs. Peck and Mrs. Grout on their students for participating in the placing of flags and grave sites of Revolutionary War soldiers in Old Burial Ground today, right? Didn't happen today. And Mr. Bob Breyer for organizing the event. It's
His
an annual
last
event that it's his last time?
It's lost.
Oh, really?
Yes. It's his last time. So they got there today and it was a beautiful day to do that.
Yeah.
And right, we will be looking at spring MCAS scores momentarily. We do have another professional development day. On this past professional development day, October 26th, the Burgess Elementary staff collaborated with the police department, participated in Alice drills, all types of crisis team, school training, and that was a half-day PD. So we thank the police department for working with the schools and all the schools, but Burgess in particularly for that day. You can see there's grade level updates for preschool and grade for all of them, all the way to the health office. So, and then some important dates to remember. Coming up, of course, our biggest thankful month of November, and some nice events going on there for kids, but I'm sure the one they're taking full advantage of will be Thanksgiving break. So, and we do have a COVID clinic, I think we mentioned it here last month, coming on November 18th for the staff, 2 to 5, and that's district. It's here at Burgess, it's for the district, it's for the whole district.
Staff.
For staff. COVID clinic to get COVID boosters, from 2 to 5 for staff in the district. If staff is interested. So.
And then on the front page, it's Tuesday, November 15th, right, for in person?
I did that today too, didn't I, Mr. Cat?
Oh,
I'm looking, I'm using that, yes, she was dancing.
says that, yeah, PTC, parent teacher. Oh.
So is it the Tuesday, the 15th, and Thursday,
Tuesday
the
is the
17th?
15th.
Yeah, the 15th and 17th.
Okay. Just a correction.
Thank you.
Just one question, I was just noticing grade 3 has one thing on learning about that. Are field trips resuming and is chemist sanitation happening?
So field trips are,
We're hoping,
Yes.
our problem is transportation.
right,
So because our bus junior and senior high students, we have to be back.
before school ends.
So, we were really hopeful when we met with teenagers in September. And, just looking, see what you'd like to do. And one of the grade levels came proposal. But then we can't follow through with it because we won't be back in time. So looking for ways to,
Because there's staff shortages for the bus routes.
figure something out. They might just be very local.
Any other questions for Mrs. Kelly, Ms. Ross on the principal's report? Okay, let's move on to superintendent's report.
Okay, I can do this report much easier than the others, so, because I wrote this one, this is like something I wrote. But last year was the first time since 2019 that the students actually took the full administration. So I need to give you this kind of history and timeline. In 2019 was full test administration for grades 3 to 6. In 2020, there was no testing at all. And in 2021, half tested. We might have done all domains, but we did only one session in each domain. And we didn't know which session the students would have taken. So this is the first full year back to that generation 2.0, MCAS 2.0 testing, which will be our baseline moving forward. So what the state said is that we certainly should, it's not, in past years we have looked at data, year-to-year data, but we really can't look at years because it was only a half a test the year previous. So we've lost that continuum of data to be able to see trends. So they did say, look back at 2019 so that we are comparing apples to apples. But in that time, it became a little disjointed. We know that student learning got interrupted. And as a result, so now we lose some of that trend data that we look at year to year. So I'm gonna do my best with year-to-year data, but it is interrupted. So, but it does state, there is a picture. The state did report that MCAS scores increased during the COVID years, and ELA scores declined, and science scores increased slightly. Now, we are in this recovery of learning loss. Our trend data mirrored that of the state. So we did see some dips in English language arts. We saw some increases in math, and science scores, believe it or not, slightly increased. So we know we have areas of improvement in writing, which is our district goal moving forward, and early literacy challenges. That's from the state's perspective. Our scores actually mirror that. So we'll look at our scores now individually. So if you look at our report, the accountability is not stated because we need that year-to-year data, but Burgess has fared very well from 2019 to 2022 with the overall score of a 79 percentile. That's a score from 1 to 99, so they're right in the high C, low B average. That's where they've been over the last 3 years. That has not changed. There's some combinations that work out really well. Our cut score, or our benchmark score for all kids would be a 500 or higher. And then you can see that in grade 3, Burgess ELA score was just over 500, exceeded the state by 3 points. Grade 4 ELA was right around 500 in the past, 497. It exceeded the state by 4 points, and for math, exceeded the state by 5 points. So we compare to the state only because that's a big aggregate data point. that we can't. You'll see on previous pages, we do look at Union 61 data as well. So there's accommodations there. Our disabilities, students with disabilities group, also fared higher than the state in overall mean achievement, and our low income subgroup scored considerably higher when we get into double digits. That's very good for those subgroups. And those are the highest subgroups we have in the school, so that's what we focus on. Any subgroup under 20 doesn't get marked. We may have students in a subgroup, but unless it's more than 20 students, there's no way to actually get that kind of achievement grades. So if you turn to page 2, we can look at several types of trend data. I just need to get mine. I have many different comparison groups here. We can compare school to union to state. So what we do is we take the 4 categories and combine the 2 highest categories of meeting and exceeding expectations. So those are combined, because once kids get to those 2 groups, we've met the mark, so to say. But we do kind of highlight the 2 lower groups because we want kids to move to the 2 higher classifications. So you can see that when we're looking from 19 to 21 to 22, it's variable, very much up and down. Because think about the interrupted school. I mean, rigor lacked in this case, not rigor as in we're talking test taking skills. The students didn't have the exposure and the experience to be able to take these tests. So you can see from 19 to 22 that there's a dip, right? So we need to definitely get back to test taking rigor, and that's hard during COVID time, right? So we can look at, and that's apples to oranges. That's different groups of students too. So not only are we looking at interrupted years, we're looking at different groups of students. We can also look at cohort groups. Now, cohort groups is a little bit more confusing, so you'll just need to follow along a little bit. Let's look at the 7th grade, our current 7th grade, 6th graders that left last year. If you start with 2019, grade 3, 2019, the 72, the same group of students jumps to grade 5, 2021, right? 59, that's after a year and a half of COVID, it's a big drop. Then bounces to 2022, 56. So you see that there was a downward trend for that 6th grade group, which, I mean, it's expected under the circumstances. They got tested in grade 3 and then not again until grade 5. That wouldn't show any decrease, okay? So then we can look at our current 5th grade. So now you look at grade 3, 2021, the 61 mark. We have 61% of our students meeting and exceeding expectations. You can then jump to 2022, grade 4. See how it's dropped, right? Because again, grade 4-1 is a big year. It's a big transition year for education. But you go from 1 session to 2 sessions. Now we've lost that rigor and momentum in test taking skills. Okay. Another trend could be our current, that was our current 5th graders. I'm sorry, what grade did I say? That was current 6th graders. That's our current 6th graders, 2022 in grade 4. Did I do that right?
I thought the 6th graders were the 72 in 2019.
Oh, no, so our current 5th graders are the 61, no. I did this whole code.
So the 5th graders would be 72 and 19.
No, so 7th grade 5 last year, 22. So they would be, grade 5 last year would be grade 4 and 21, 64.
They would not have taken it in 20.
They wouldn't have taken, right, so it was 21 and 22. So we're looking at our current 6th grade is 2021, 64, see that, grade 4, to 57 and 22. So I didn't code it right. So grade 6 goes from 64% meeting and exceeding to 57% meeting and exceeding. So that brings us to 23 grade 6. So then our current grade 5 would be, that's what I said, that grade 3 would be 2021 grade 3 to 2022 grade 4. So there's a decline. So the interrupted, that is not indicative of past years, I guess is my point, but it follows suit with the state to say we dropped in the literacy group. We're gonna see it very different in math. Okay?
Can I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
So, I see under the trends, it talks about an average scaled score. Does that mean this year the MCAS were graded on a curve? Is that what they mean by scaled score? What does that mean?
So we get several types of data. We get raw data that comes out without the scaled score. So the scaled score is the 500 or higher. Like that's our benchmark for scaled score. We get data in July, August. This year was very late. It was end of July, August. That's raw scores that just says how many answers the students got correct out of the total number of points. Then they convert that to a scaled score. You can get anything from that 500 benchmark or higher is the scaled score that we want to achieve with all students. And it's broken into those 4 categories. Okay. So when we're talking of scaled score, it's out of 530 points. And every category is an interval of 30 points. So what they do is they convert the raw score to a scaled score. So it's not like a curved, it's basically, it aligns better with like AP and College Board testing scores. Does that explain? Okay. So now if we go to math, I had to no-word-like the codes to figure out which school would, we have the
They're
same, same kind of trend data. We can look at historical year to year, apples to oranges. We can compare to the union, we compare to the state. To me, when you're comparing apples to oranges, it's not a good it's nice to see what kind of instructional practices we need to employ with standards-based teaching, but it's not necessarily comparing the same group of kids. So, and we'll start the same way. We'll look at our last year's 6th grade, our current 7th grade. If you look at 2019, grade 3, 2019, that's 58%. Then you need to jump to 2021, that they dropped to 45% meeting and exceeding, but then bounce back in grade 6 in 2022 to 72%. So it was up and down, but they ended strong, very strong mathematically. So there, again, follows the trend of the state. If we go to grade 5, see if I get this one, our current grade 6 would be to start at grade 4, 2021, and then go to grade 5, 2022. They stay pretty consistent. That's not much of a variance there to worry about. But they did move kids, if you go to the next category, they did move kids out of the not meeting to partially meeting. Do you see that? So look at not meeting. 2021 grade 4, 14. In 2022, it's 7. So they did move students out of that lower category, which is what we want to see. We want to see that shift left to right. So there's a lot of information we can collect here. And then we can go back to even as grade 4 last year, which if you look at 2022, grade 3 last year, 31. They're faring just about average with the Union 61, but they're still lower than the state. So we get some work to do with the young groups of kids. Our current grade 4, right? So we follow similar trends to the state. Then on page 4, we do not have cohort data because they only take it in grade 5, but you can see that from at least from 2021 to 2022, there's a slight increase because meeting and exceeding increased, and there's not as many the lower percentage in the partially meeting expectations. So there's a slight increase in science, so we follow the same trend. Then outside of achievement, which is our scaled scores, we can look at student growth. Our benchmark score here is 50. It's a number 50, it's not a percent. So if you turn the page on, this is the visual. I give you the colors on page 4, but the visuals on page 5. We want all data points to move to the top right-hand corner. In language arts, it's sitting kind of steady in the middle, right? In math, there is a little bit of a slight movement heading to the right direction. So I just give you the data points on page 4, but the visuals on page 5. All right. Then the visual of grade 6, on page 6 is how grade 6 has done compared to its predecessors. And you can see in English language arts, there is a slight increase in the not meeting expectations. The overall, it just shows the trend data that I showed you on the first page. So it's not as bad as 2021, but it's relatively okay with 2019, right? 2021 was really a bad year for testing for grade 6. And then for math, same thing. It's actually an improved from 2019 and a little bit worse from 2021 because there's less kids in that top group. So there's just visual. Sometimes visual is better than numbers. And improvement opportunities here. We know we need to work on identifying students at all performance levels below 500 to be able to provide interventions in the classroom, interventions outside of the classroom, because we want to get students to that 500 threshold. We know we need to work on written responses. Kathy has a plan with her group. It's a school-wide goal this year that all staff have 3, are you doing 2 written prompts where students will actually be writing, responding to a prompt, and then looking at, teachers will look at their scores and then put some strategies in place for the next time to hopefully see growth over time. And we know we have SST models in the MTSS. We are constantly trying to provide supports for kids at any point, whether it be academic, behavioral, social, emotional, because we know in order for students to perform well, they need to feel good about the school that they're at. So,
Did we ever, can I just ask a question
Sure.
about, particularly about the first bullet about identifying the students who are below 500 and paying particular attention to them? Do we, is there a correlation between these students, I'll call them grades, but you know my feeling about our grading system here. Everyone's a 3. But is there a correlation or some feedback from teachers that mirrors, it, because I hate the thought that we're just like focusing on making this test right when, are they missing the boat like holistically, or is it they're not good test takers, or they're not good at whatever this test is serving up? Like, and I'm sorry if Kathy has to answer that.
no, I think we
multiple measures.
Yes, there are
We use
multiple measures. Yeah.
Procedures-based report card is one way to look to see if there is, consistency across these scores. And we also use our district-wide data that we do, so the STAR assessment, BAS. We compare all of those data points. And there oftentimes is a direct correlation between the students' MCAS score. And those multiple measures, but not one of them in isolation.
Yeah.
Correct.
Can I add anything?
Yeah.
Likewise, this test is not an indicator in isolation that somebody has a learning deficit. It's that it's just one data point.
It
It is one data point.
But we're still, this is still a requirement to graduate high school in this state,
Yes.
is that right? And if as a parent you were to opt out, what does that look like when it gets to?
You still have to prove competency.
Can you do that through grades and other things? So they say you have to prove competency, but there's no way to do that other than this test.
Every year.
It's every 3 to 10. They do
Well,
not
they have
test
to
in,
pass it in grade 10.
they have to pass it in grade 10. So ninth grade, it's
Graduate.
not given.
Okay.
In 10th grade is the determining factor if they.
And what's passing?
500.
500, that's the magic number.
Meeting.
And that doesn't change for.
If you don't pass it in grade 10, you have several opportunities to continue to take it until you graduate as a senior. And there are plans that get put in place for that. So the idea is truly to get everyone to pass. But typically, if you pass it all along, even in 7th and 8th grade, you are not going to have a problem passing it in 10th grade.
Yeah, it doesn't get exponentially harder
It
or
doesn't, in
anything, it's
fact,
just more of the same.
I would argue that I think the 4th grade test and the 7th and 8th grade tests are the challenging tests.
Which one's 4?
You're
Those
right.
out, ladies.
I have not
Give
taken
your
the
kids
test
a pass when
firsthand,
it comes to those
but
grades.
looking at the scores, the expectations from what I see, and I will say that 4th and 8th grade were the first, or was it 5th and 8th?
Before.
4th and 8th were the first 2 tests actually created before 10th grade.
1998,
4th and 8th were the first 2, then 10th grade came after, then they filled in with this wonderful idea of let's do every year.
Fifth grade has always been challenged
It's been
because
very
the test was significant for many years.
Yes.
Comparing the test, the 3rd grade test to the 4th grade test, it was night and day.
Yeah.
And so we would always have that like decrease in scores, but it was actually the test was harder, tremendously harder than the 4th
They have not revised the tests since they put them out. They just made other tests. So clearly we knew that the 4th and 8th grade, and 8th was the absolute first test. Then it was 4th, then it was 10th, and then they filled in.
The test was in social studies.
Right, they,
The
right,
fourth
social
grade
studies.
in 2000.
So,
All
I mean, to your
content
point,
tests.
15 days,
yeah,
Yep,
it was
crazy.
a long time.
It was crazy.
15 days of testing in 4th grade.
It has been streamlined a lot. and
Yeah.
Kids obviously do not, it's not timed, where before it used to be timed as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
So there's,
I thought I remembered it.
yeah,
I don't think so.
Park was, Park
You're
was
young
timed.
enough to have taken the
I
MCAS?
have taken the
Okay,
MCAS.
well, let me tell you about the Iowa test that I took.
The Iowa was tough too, yeah. So, but to your point, as we never use one, this is a snapshot of that day on that, at that time. Our local data is much better. We can, in our
Teacher
star.
observations.
Yeah, I would
Teacher-
love that all
teacher
that like paints a better picture
It-
than, I
And
mean.
we see
Absolutely.
trajectory as to performance. The STAR has a great trajectory as to how well students will perform. And then our other local snapshots certainly do pull out skills deficits that we may need to work on.
Just, correct me if I'm wrong, Jody, but our rate percentage of passing when they get to 10th grade is quite
Oh,
high.
exceptionally,
For
99%.
districts.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yeah, quite high.
Okay.
Yeah.
Question?
Okay, maybe 95%, but it's up there even this year. I think it was 90, it's up there. I don't have 10 past people.
Okay.
Just noticing that, we are in general exceeding the state in most areas. Grade 6 looks like they definitely did the best. Is that something that is historically true, or, and is that, do we attribute that mostly to just they've taken the test more times?
I think kids certainly get better at test taking, no doubt, but I also think that concepts get, by 5th grade, those concepts really solidify, and then it transitions again, basic math skills, even literacy, your writing gets better, I think just skills get better for
Facts,
students.
fluency, everything is there.
Yeah, just big, skills get better. And they're used to seeing it at that point. I mean, they're just more exposure. Which goes back to the difficulty in this report is that they have had little exposure, but we expect the same results. So, and I'm not sure that that's the message. We're certainly not getting that from our students that, they need to be in school to be able to get good test taking skills. So, and we know 4th to 5th grade, 5th to 6th grade, that the concepts get that much harder, more concrete to abstract. So.
And then just one other question. I know you are looking to address grade 3 in that 5 math, and then we're well above the state, but still below the rest of Union 61. And then we look at the graphic with the stars, like grade 5 math is definitely the most concerning there. Is there any plan to address that, to try to bring us up more in line with the rest of Union 61?
So, we have brought in a platform called Freckle, it's part of Renaissance, which integrates well with STAR. And what that does is our local STAR test, all kids take the test, K to 6. It puts the students at a level that this now Freckle app, part of Renaissance STAR, takes them where they are, skill-based, to where they need to be. It's very intuitive. It's very, kids just love it. They get on and get this practice, skill-based practice, outside of the general curriculum. So that's one way that we're doing, it's like a station or a center being used in the classroom. And here, I was looking at the usage report the other day, and I don't know what made me go there, but it's like 12,000 accomplishments that, I mean, you're talking about many kids, 1,000 kids, so teachers are using it, and kids are liking it. So we hope that that just bridges the gap a little bit with some past skills that they may not have. That's one way. Outside of all the things that happen in a classroom with teacher intervention and small group work and interventionists outside of all that.
And I can speak for the staff. We all love to be ahead of everybody else in Route 61, but one of the things to keep in mind with Burgess is the size of Burgess. Plus we have different subgroups that take the test than the other schools have. So that there is an impact of that won't show up this year, but may show up next year.
So we spoke of low income and special ed subgroups. We know those are groups higher than 20 students. We're getting more subgroups in Burgess, higher than 20 students in a subgroup that we will collect data on. That certainly impact the aggregate overall data, is what Kathy's applying. That other schools, because of our sheer size, don't have.
The trends.
The trends.
Population trends.
And this is just more my knowledge that I don't know what the student support team and the multi-tiered system of supports are.
Okay, so multi-tier system support is basically guidance we get from the DESE that we need to look at the whole child and provide supports at when they're ready or when they need it, so to say. And what that does, there could be behavioral supports, academic supports, it's all kinds of supports. We tap into our adjustment counselors, any type of, it could be our nurse, could be anything to provide the support for a child when they need it. Same thing happens academically. We start core 1 instruction, all core 1 instruction, then so that's whole group. Then we get into smaller groups within a classroom. And then if students need more than those smaller groups in a classroom, we do pull-ups. So that's what we mean by system of supports. And it doesn't matter if it's academic or behavioral. What was the other one? SST?
Yeah.
So during this time of monitoring progress of kids, teachers and support staff take notes. And if there is little to no progress, we go then to our student support team. What is that? Student support team. It's called different things at AIT. But student support team, where a group of people now look at the progress of the child and then determine what else may be needed versus it being just classroom based. So a lot of clinical staff, a lot of administration, it doesn't matter. Could anybody come to the table that's needed to help the child move forward. But that's a process that takes place here over time because you're progress monitoring anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks on all that data.
Any questions on the MCAS? On public access.
Someone else talk.
Hi there. I'll just add, Mary Bridget Burns, I've got 3 kids in 2 buildings and been served very well by Burgess. The current 9th grade cohort, that graduating class of 26, the requirements for MCAS for graduation have gone up starting with that cohort. So be aware of that as you are thinking about these things. So those numbers have gone up. It's not that MCAS will change, but the cut scores for considered
Yeah, let me
passing have gone
piggyback.
up.
So it's always, the cut score has always been
Always.
the targeted cut score has always
Yeah.
been 500, but because of the transition of next generation MCAS to
That's right.
legacy,
Yes.
they've had to adjust, so I don't wanna be the cut score by the time these young kids get to graduate to 10th
Right.
grade will be 500.
This is true.
Yes.
Just something interesting.
Yes, it is interesting.
It's my bread and butter. And if I work with Rhode Island quite a bit, and the RICAS is MCAS.
Yes.
Like, they don't even bother to change the logo sometimes. So it's an excellent test that's used across the region,
Yes.
and it's copied quite a bit. I also took Iowa's growing up in Ohio. We were told the Iowa kids were smarter, and that we needed to keep up. I don't know that that was wrong necessarily. It's an excellent test, but MCAS has really become a national standard.
Yes.
So it stinks in some ways, but it's a really great tool.
Yes. So, yeah. And they just leveled the playing field for high school to be the 480. So before, ELA in the high school was slightly lower than that of the math score, so they've just leveled that. That's just one step closer to getting to the 500 mark, which is gonna happen next year.
Yeah,
So,
there's
yeah.
a little bit of inside baseball, but it's
Exactly.
like going to affect the children in such significant ways.
Yes.
So I just thought I'd add that to the mix.
Yeah, but fortunately, the students progressing here have always seen it as 500, so it's not really new to them. It was just getting the kids in the high school to transition to the new test. Because they've had their first testing year for MCAS.
The current 9th grade.
The current 9th grader was, no, the 12th graders.
Oh,
Theirs
their turn.
was
Yeah.
2019, where
Yes.
they took MCAS 2.0, I call it, next generation, for the first time. So there's that transition period that was taking place.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a very different.
Yeah. So.
Thank you. Anyone else, public access? All right. Subcommittee reports.
Kristen, sorry. Did we get the bullying report? That was under superintendent's
Yeah, we
report.
did do the superintendent's report, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. So I do have a superintendent's report from Deb. So she says, I brought the bullying report from last meeting forward. So the bullying report, the state has not yet posted for FY '22. They haven't posted the data. We do have school-based data, that last year there were 2 investigations. However, there was unsubstantial, the 2 investigations that we actually reported to the DESE, or that were reported. But in their findings, there was unsubstantiated evidence, which caused a no finding result. So although there were 2 incidences here, they came up as a no finding. So when the state actually posts that data for FY '22, it will be 0 under Burgess.
No, it won't be. It changed 2 years ago, last year, that it should come up.
As
It
2
should come up
incidents, but
as two-
unsubstantiated.
As 2 allegations and then 0 substantiated.
So,
But that's a change, because it's always just been if there was a finding for, then it would get reported as the number would get added the allegations.
so it was 2 allegations but no findings, so therefore that's what we'll see in the report. And that gets submitted every summer, and we don't know why they're late posting it, because it's usually been posted by now. But, then she wanted me to remind all of you that the joint meeting is November 22nd. And then we do need negotiations for bus drivers, speaking of transportation for field trips, starts Monday. So that should be coming up as part of then a budget issue for next year. And then we are looking to we need a vote of support to deem the specialized transport chair as obsolete. There was a student,
It's an activity chair, it's a
specialized activity chair for a
So
student who
yes.
once attended here and has moved out of district. So if we deem it obsolete, we can actually sell this to the new district. there's already been conversation regarding that, and they would like to sell it for 75% of the original cost, which, like for $1,000. But we can't sell
It's
it
not
until it's
useful.
deemed, it's not useful to any other student.
So it's custom fit for
For
this
this
particular child. And in order to participate in the classroom, this district had to purchase a chair for her. She moved this year to another district due to supply chain issues. We actually had a hard time when we got the chair for her to get it in. It took multiple fittings and that. So it's useless to anybody else other than this child. So,
And she will eventually grow out of it as well, but the child will grow out of it, grow out of the chair, as well. But right now, it still fits the child, so therefore, they would like to purchase it.
Okay. So,
Looking for vote support to deem it obsolete.
okay, so does that have to be official vote, or can I just say everyone in favor of deeming this chair obsolete so that we can sell it back to the person who uses it? All in favor?
Is there a name for it?
it's a Rifkin chair, Lisa.
Okay. What kind of chair?
Rifkin.
A roof chair.
Rifkin.
Rifkin chair.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
You,
Picture.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
just thinks he has to be. I don't think so. No. Okay, thank you. Okay. I guess subcommittee reports, we don't have any. Team task force representative, that is me. We did have a meeting on October 18th. Some of the highlights, we talked about fuel concerns. We were 180K over budget. So lots more good news always on that front. We talked a little bit about, the field house is reopened, the floors are redone, and it's back in business. I believe the volleyball team was going to christen it that week, with a home game. Let's see, we talked about homecoming again. There were, I believe it was 862 students they fit in the junior high gym for that. Must have smelled great. A lot of Axe. Yeah. But as I had said in the last meeting, it was a super successful event. They spoke about the tech program getting a lot of interest from the public leveraging that talent to do projects around town, people getting apprenticeships in all the local businesses, which is really cool. And it just I thought it was interesting how the population of that program has grown so much that right now they are pretty much at capacity. There are like 532 students. So, there'll be some movement as the freshmen go through their exploratory. They go through all of the concentrations and then pick their favorite or decide they want to jump back into the academic focus. But just awesome to see that kind of interest in that. Now, do those kids actually take the MCAS?
Yes.
I'm going to get away out of this one way or the other, off the record. Okay, so that was the meeting, and yes, hope you can all make the joint meeting this month, just before Thanksgiving. We can all see each other over at the junior high. Okay, next up is unfinished business. Do we have any?
Yeah, so I have one. So after our meeting last time, Julie had just pulled me aside to talk about the bullying prevention when she was going to make the changes. We had struck the words intervention plan in a few areas, but it is a subsection, so I think we need to just revisit the wording on that.
Okay.
So you voted to take intervention plan out?
Right.
We need to actually put it back in.
Yeah,
because it's
because it used to be part of the title, which is why we were just kind of finding strike.
Yes.
Because it was part of the title, but it's actually referencing a subsection and therefore needs to remain so that it can,
Right.
attack that reference. Okay.
And it follows the line of the regs, the MASC's proposal of this whole, it encumbers the whole policy of bullying
Right.
Prevention.
Right, and task force kept it in, I'm assuming, because everyone wants to strike it.
So the
Okay.
only thing we would like to need to change based on what was posted today is the grade levels being age appropriate K to 6 students, not K to 12.
Right, yep,
So that's the one revision we'll need to do.
okay. So I can make the motion to put the word intervention plan back into all the places that it once existed prior to our last meeting where we struck it. Second?
Perfect.
Okay, all in favor of that? We still have a quorum here,
Yep.
okay, great,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Any other unfinished business, or was that it? Okay, great. Any new business?
Let me just something really quick before. So, looking at the playground, is there a plan to replace all the swings that are suddenly gone
We've
in the next?
since
Okay,
February.
all right.
Since
So that's what-
February, supply chain.
All right.
So swings are coming.
Swings are coming.
Well,
Just
we
in
don't-
time for winter.
We checked on them, we don't know when they're coming.
Oh.
So we've actually moved to, because Jeff, there was some social media chatter over the weekend.
That's what I brought.
And so, Jeff actually looked into it, reached out to the sales rep to see if there's any way of retrofitting, but that's always a slippery slope because everything as it exists is approved and for safety and all of that stuff. They're working on it.
Okay. Any other new business? No? Okay, then I shall make a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Great, thank you, everyone. Sorry, Mrs. Kelly. Go get some tea.
You're a trooper.
I think this one.